Hey everybody, Gromlos here with another awesome video. Now, this is going to be another feedback and suggestion video, and it will once again be about the event mode for both air and ground forces, as well as mixed battles. Now, I have talked quite a bit about this topic in the past, and often it was pointed out that I should make those suggestions officially on the forums as well, but until now I never got around to doing so. However, I played a lot of events during the holidays, and after that I played a lot of the amazing Absolute Simulator Battle event. So I again felt the urge to give a bit of feedback and point out a few things that could be improved and turn the event mode into something really amazing. This time though I plan on eventually doing a proper suggestions thread on the forum as well. This is why I decided to make a new video dedicated to collect my suggestions and feedback on the event mode. Some of them are new ideas and some are old I have already talked about, and I will also ask you guys what you think about them and what your ideas are, and which of those ideas might be worth suggesting on the official forum. And as always, with some hopefully entertaining gameplay footage of the events I played over the holidays and after that, and of course of the Absolute Simulator Battle event as well. So this means I will repeat a few things in this video I have already talked about in the past, just letting you know. Now, let me start with explaining quickly why I keep yammering on about this topic. I have talked about it a lot in the past, so why now again? Why do I keep bringing this up? Well, simply because I believe that the event mode has the best chances to provide the kind of experience that many simulator battle players want. More historical accurate representations of World War II air and tank combat, while still keeping the virtues of the game, like accessibility. I simply think that in this mode the game has the best chances to unlock its full potential. And I think even if the normal queue starts to move in the right direction again with battle ratings and so on, it will always require a lot more compromise than event mode. And the Absolute Simulator Battle event has proven what is possible for this game and how much more appealing it can be with even some minor adjustments. The Absolute Simulator Battle event brought changes that a lot of the simulator battle players have asked for since a while, and the event was a great experience because of it. Of course, I, as well as many other simulator battle players, hope that all those changes will eventually find their way into the normal queue as well. However, there are just more things to consider in the queue when introducing changes like no friendly tags. For example, the large amount of captured planes. Or the fact that in rank 5 many nations have the same top-tier fighter plane. The Germans get the Sabre as well as the MiG-15, the Japanese also get Sabres. So in Russia versus Germany high-tier battles you have MiG-15s versus MiG-15s, and in USA versus Germany or Japan high-tier battles you have Sabre versus Sabres. Hard to tell who is who. In a normal queue that would present a problem. In the event mode, however, it isn't one, as you can control what planes or tanks take part in it and avoid such problems with ease. That doesn't mean you can't use those jets, by the way. You can easily come up with a Cold War event, for example, and simply have the East German MiG-15s on the side of the Russian team and the Sabres on the side of the US team. Problem solved. Now, of course, it might be possible to do something similar in the queue, but even if it would happen, it would take time, while it is already possible to do so in the event mode right now. And there are also other reasons why I personally think that in the long run the event mode is simply better suited for a proper simulator battle mode. For example, even if the battle rating problems are going to be solved satisfactorily, which we don't know yet, you would still have some very weird matchups. For example, the US teams around the mid to high tier would probably still be dominated by B-63 King Cobras, even though the US forces in reality never used this plane in combat. That is just one little example why I think the queue will always be a compromise. That's why I prefer the event mode, and this is why I would like to see some more effort put into improving this mode. Because while I do immensely enjoy flying and driving in event mode, there are still a few problems and in my opinion a lot of room for improvement. So I'd like to give a bit of feedback and a few suggestions on what could be done to improve the event mode based on the experience I had when flying or driving tanks in them. First, let's talk real quick about the Absolute Simulator Battle mode event we got to test for a few days, so I can give you my opinion and some feedback on it. Now, in case you missed the event, this event was a simulator battle mixed battle on the Poland and East Europe maps. There were actually only 3 changes to the normal simulator battle mode, but those 3 changes have a major impact on the way the game plays and massively improved it. The first and probably most important one is on the tank side of things. the minimap icons were removed, so you cannot simply look at the minimap to spot enemy tanks anymore. You actually have to look for them yourself in this event. And this little change has a huge impact on the game, and it makes tanks battles simply way more fun and way more exciting. I never had this much fun playing tanks before, and judging from the feedback of other players, I'm not the only one who thinks so. This is what most people have hoped tanks would feel and play like in the first place. Not having the minimap or radar assistance to spot enemies is of course one of the things that already makes simulator air battles as exciting as they are. Having to constantly scan around you to search for targets and prevent an enemy from sneaking up on you just simply makes the game more exciting, so it is not surprising that removing the minimap spotting for tanks has a similar effect on them and makes playing them also way more exciting as well as more immersive. Flanking works now as intended, which helps to balance out weaker armored but more mobile tanks versus heavier armored ones, and there are a lot of new possibilities now that simply would not work when you have the minimap giving away your position all the time. For example, once I played with a friend in T-34-85s in this event and we managed to get into the flank of two Jagdpanzer 470s, but we were pretty far away from them. With the minimap we would have needed to fire right away, because they would have seen us on the minimap and could have turned their heavier frontal armor towards us before we got the shot off if we have waited. But in this case we were pretty certain that they had not seen us yet, as we were approaching from a forest from the side. So we could move in closer to assure a hit with the first shot and coordinate our fire so that we both fired at the same time and take the two Jagdpanzers out simultaneously. You just don't have the time for such things if the minimap gives your position away right away. So this is a great change and one people have asked for since the closed beta. Good to see that in practice it works as well as people have hoped it would, if not better. Now, the next change is important for both air and ground. In addition to the minimap symbols removed, all the name tags were removed from this event as well, which means no blue name tags above friendly planes and tanks either. You have to do your own target identification. This change also adds to the game mode, I think. Not having the floating name tags just looks a lot better, and I think having to do your own target identification adds some depth to the game mode as well. Now there were occasional friendly fire incidents, as you can imagine, but not too often, and I think those would go down even more over time as people learn to identify targets properly and simply not fire on a target if you don't know what it is. And since the amount of planes and tanks in an event is limited, you can easily look them up if you don't know a plane in the lineup and take a look at its silhouette. Overall, I would say with a little bit of practice, target recognition is not that difficult, and I had little trouble with it, both in the air as well as on the ground. Overall, also a very positive change. Now the last change is the one with the smallest impact. The HUD elements you usually get in simulator battle mode are gone, so you have to use the instruments of your plane if you want to know your speed, your altitude or things like engine temperature. Also helps to improve the feel of realism, and it is nice that all of those nice gauges in the cockpit now have a proper use. One thing that I think would be nice here though would be a slight improvement to the view controls. Some people have complained it is difficult to see the gauges without track IR, so an improvement in the view control would be nice that allows you to set up a hotkey to zoom in on important tiles. Other than that, I found that for the most part flying without the HUD is no problem, and again it just adds a you are in the cockpit feeling if you use the actual cockpit instruments, and that you simply have to guess, for example, how much ammo you have left if your plane doesn't have an ammo counter. So that's a quick overview over the changes in the absolute event over the normal simulator battle mode. Now, as far as feedback towards the specific event goes, there's actually not that much to say about it. It's pretty much what many simulator battle players asked for, both on the ground as well as in the air, and it works well, even better than expected in my opinion. There isn't much wrong with it, especially considering that it was only a test so far. So about that specific event I do not have that many suggestions, just a few small things. As others have already pointed out, there should not be an air spawn in this mode. It's simulator battle, you start on an airfield and that's the end of it. But I guess that was just a little oversight, as it was just a test. And maybe in the future the airfields on those maps need to be looked at, and maybe some of them need their runway a little bit extended. Also, many people think that the respawns should be removed from this event, and I agree. And since we have removed so many HUD elements already, The hit cam looks pretty much out of place and I think should be removed from this event as well. Now, the low detail settings remain a bit of a problem, but as I've said in the past, on the newer, larger maps like Poland or Eastern Europe, it is not such a big deal anymore, simply because those maps are not as packed full with vegetation than the smaller arcade maps like Jungle or Karelia. So, while it remains a slight problem and one that eventually needs to be looked at, it is not one that is nowhere near big enough that it would block the implementation of those changes to simulator battle mode. Now, I do think though that the simulator battles should take place only on the new, bigger maps. I don't know why the arcade maps like Jungle or Karelia are still in their rotation for simulator battles. There are enough big maps now that this is simply not necessary. Now, without icons and name tags, a few things would be nice to improve communications within the team. For one, it would be nice if both the pilots and the tankers would have access to both the air and the ground map, so they can coordinate better using the same grid. Also, it would be nice to have access to a compass, similar to the one in the Armor series for example, to quickly get the direction you're facing and better describe the position of an enemy tank for example. Another thing that would be nice would of course be binoculars for the tankers, but that of course is not a new request. And last but not least, like most simulator battle players, I hope that the Absolute Simulator Battle event will be back soon and that it will stay. However, I also recognize that mixed battles is not for everyone and there are still players that enjoy pure air events like Pearl Harbor, Midway or Battle of Britain. So I would like to see two events in the future, one mixed and one pure air. Despite much doomsaying, the number of Warzone players in general and the number of simulator battle players especially has been rising quite a bit in recent months, and I think we now have the number of players to support both a mixed and a pure air event at the same time, at least most of the time. Also, I would like to see some more complex scenarios for ground and mixed battles. Currently we have a simple point capture mode, like in arcade air battles. In pure air simulator and realistic battle games, there is usually a more sophisticated scenario going on, depicting a real battle, and I would like to see this in the mixed battles as well. The capture points are also a problem, because as soon as someone starts to cap, everybody on the ground and in the air knows about it and can simply start bombing those circles. I think those cap circles simply don't work very well. At the very least, a capture zone should be bigger and not be marked with a big circle you can use as an easy target. Well, and that's the feedback specifically for this event. As I've said, there isn't much wrong with it, and I think it's a great experience, and I can't wait for this event to be back. However, I do have a few more suggestions about the implementation of the event mode in general and how it might be improved, so I would like to talk about that. Well then, let's start with the first topic I would like to discuss. The way matches in event mode end, simply in either a win or a loss. Well, having the match end in either a win or a loss might be the logical way to do it at first, but I think if you try to recreate a historic event, it is not the right way of doing it, and I think there is a lot of potential of improving the experience for the players when doing it a little bit different. Now, let me explain what I mean. During the holidays I was flying the Pearl Harbor event in simulator battle mode. This event is very hard to win for the US team for reasons I have explained in the video I made about the event. However, it has been pointed out on occasions that this is of course not unrealistic. The Japanese, quote-unquote, did win Pearl Harbor. It was a successful surprise attack, so the Japanese having the upper hand most of the time in this event is not unrealistic. In that sense, the most common outcome of the Pearl Harbor event in simulator battle mode is not far off the mark. The Japanese achieve surprise, they have the numbers advantage if you count the AI bombers, and while some US fighters manage to get in the air and put up a good fight, in the end they don't manage to save much of the fleet. However, one team simply winning a lot more often than the other team is frustrating for those that play on the underdog side. And this is just one example. If we are talking about somewhat historic events, it will happen that it won't be possible to get the 100% balance between the teams, as well as having a somewhat historic matchup and numbers. That goes for planes as well as tanks. Now, I prefer a more historic matchmaking, even if it means I don't win a lot of the matches, but I recognize that this will be a source of frustration for many players. And this is one reason why I would like to see the simple either lose or win system replaced with something a little bit more complex in events. And I have suggested this before. Now currently, if we take the Pearl Harbor event as an example again, if the ships are destroyed, the Japanese win, and if all the AI bombers are destroyed, the US side wins. In the future I would like it if this could be changed and the destroyed ships and bombers are only match-ending conditions but don't necessarily decide who won or lost. And instead of only having two possible outcomes for the two teams, lose or win, there could be a number of them which take a lot of different factors into account. So in the Pearl Harbor event, for example, the US fleet or all the dive bombers destroyed will end the match, as it does now. However, instead of also deciding who won, there is a performance evaluation for both teams, taking into account how much they have achieved. So, for example, if the US fleet is destroyed, but most of the AI bombers that were attacking the fleet were shot down as well, the outcome for the US team, instead of simply lose, could be mediocre, fleet heavily damaged, but also heavily casualties inflicted on the attacking force. And if the US fleet is destroyed, but US bombers you can fly in this event manage to destroy the Japanese carriers, which is something you can do in this event, it could even be a partial success for both sides, as both manage to inflict heavy casualties on the other's fleet. That's just a little example. Such a system would also greatly help to make certain planes and missions they should perform in an event more useful. To bring another example from the Pacific, the Midway event. In this event you can fly the SPD dive bomber and fly nice sorties versus the enemy fleet. However, doing so and sinking a few enemy cruisers at the moment has very little impact on the outcome of the battle, so in doing so you aren't really helping your team. So again, I think it would be cool to have multiple possible outcomes for this event that aren't just a win or loss, but instead take all the targets on the map into account to come to a conclusion on how the teams performed. So let's assume the Japanese managed to take Midway and this ends the game, but the US team managed to shoot down most of the Japanese team and a few SPD pilots managed to sink a part of the enemy fleet. So the outcome could be, for example, a partial success for both sides. For the US it could say island lost but heavy casualties inflicted on opposing air as well as naval forces. For the Japanese the opposite, island captures but heavy casualties sustained. Along those lines there could be, let's say, 7 or 8 different possible outcomes for a mission for both sides, which take a lot of different factors into account, some depicting average outcomes, some above average and some below, and the win bonus could be given out to the above average outcomes. And this would prevent frustrating events where one side is winning all the time and the other is losing all the time, like we have seen quite a few times in events during the holidays. Sure, that would mean that the stats could not give a win-loss rate for players anymore, but honestly, I think those stats are absolutely pointless in War Thunder anyhow, as they can easily be influenced by simply always choosing to play a nation at the tier where it has the advantage. So this would be my first suggestion for event mode. Replace the simple loss-win system with a more sophisticated system. And this goes of course for air as well as ground forces. Now, the next suggestion is a further modification of something I have talked about a lot in the past already. And that is that I think in certain events some vehicles should only be available in small numbers. To bring out my typical example, the Battle of Kursk. Now, the Germans had of course Tigers and a few Panthers and even Ferdinands at this battle. However, their number were comparably small to the number of Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs and Stuks. In a Kursk event in War Thunder, we had accordingly the choice to use all those tanks, Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs and Stuks. However, as you would expect, everything smaller than the Tiger was pretty rare. Most people were driving a Tiger. And that presents a few problems in my opinion. First of all, I think it simply does not really represent the battle that well. As I have said, most tanks on the German side should still be Panzer IVs and IIIs, with Tigers and Panthers being a rare and scary sight, not business as usual because everyone is driving one. And secondly, the 76mm T-34s have a very hard time dealing with them, so a large difference in team size is necessary to make up for it, which causes further problems in my opinion. For that reason I would like to see a cap on some vehicles in some events, and not just on the German side of course, and not just for tanks. To give another example for the air part of the game, let's imagine a P-17 escort event. If you introduce a cap on a mission like that, you can, for example, allow a small number of MA262s in the event without having to go to extremes with the numbers of the teams. You can have, let's say, a 14-man German team with a maximum of 2 262s and 2 MA163s, and the rest of the team being in prop planes. Also, such a cap could prevent games with too many fighter planes in a mixed battle event, for example. So this is the reason why I would like to see a cap on certain vehicles in certain events. However, you can't just introduce such a cap on vehicles. There are quite a few things to consider that might cause problems. First of all, to go back to the Tiger example, if you just restrict the number of Tigers that can take part in a battle, you will run into a big problem. A lot of people will queue up in it, and much more than in smaller Panzer IIIs and IVs, so the matchmaker will have trouble finding a game for all those Tigers. On the same time, there will not be enough Panzer III and Panzer IV players to go around, and the waiting times will become excessive. Now, I have already suggested in the past that you could solve this problem with the possibility to queue up in two vehicles, a primary and a secondary choice. In this case, the Tiger being the primary choice and the Panzer III or a Panzer IV being a secondary choice. Now, I refined that idea a little bit more. I think what would be really good for events would be a lobby system in this case. So you press the join battle and you will be placed in a lobby for the match, as long as you have a tank or a plane in your lineup that has an open spot in this event. Now, you can simply pick a spot with the tank you want to use, but the number of, say, Tiger slots are limited, so if others have already taken them, you can instead pick a Panzer III, a Panzer IV or a Stuck, or whatever else you have in your lineup that is available in this event. The same of course would be true for the other side, where maybe the number of IS-1s or IS-2s would be limited. But there are of course a few more things to consider when you do things this way. First of all, currently if you play a tank or a plane that is lower in rank than what you are currently researching, your research gain is greatly reduced. Now, this restriction makes perfect sense in a normal queue, as you would otherwise have lots of people that unlock their jets by farming new players in low rank matches. However, in event mode this makes a whole lot less sense. Picking a lower rank tank or plane has no influence in whom you are fighting. That is one of the things I really like about the event mode. I can play a lower rank tank and plane, and I don't have to feel bad for playing against new players. I play versus the same people no matter what I pick from the lineup. However, that also means that if I pick a Panzer III instead of a Tiger in an event where I can play both, I am at a disadvantage when it comes to unlocking things. I did play the Panzer III quite a bit in the Absolute Simulator Battle event, and in this event it was of course one of the weaker tanks. However, I generally like driving or flying one of the underdogs. However, from a purely economic point of view, if you so want, that was a bad move. I am currently unlocking one of the Panther tanks on a higher rank, so choosing the Panzer III over the Tiger meant I got way less experience for the damage I did compared to what I would have gotten in a Tiger. I think in an event there should be no penalty for XP gain for driving a lower rank vehicle than what you are researching. If you do so, you only make it harder for yourself. You fight the same opposition, only in a weaker vehicle, so there is no reason for this penalty and no reason to punish those that choose to play a vehicle that presents a bigger challenge. Furthermore, I would say that on top of not having this penalty, weaker tanks should get a bonus in XP and Lions, similar to a premium vehicle, to make them more attractive in this event. I would say the strongest tank in the event on this side should act as a benchmark, and weaker tanks should get a bonus according to how much weaker they are to this benchmark. So, just as an example, if the top tank is the Tiger, a Panzer IV-H maybe get 25% bonus and the Panzer III-M maybe 60%, and lower Panzer IIIs even more than that. That should make using lower rank vehicles in an event more popular, so that people don't just leave if they don't get to drive their Tiger. Now, one more issue to make this cap on vehicles fair. I think it should be possible in such a case to transfer the module XP from one tank to another in this event. The idea being, you just got your Tiger and you want to unlock its modules, but in the event there is at the moment no opening for a Tiger, so I think it should be possible to drive the Panzer III instead, but give the module XP to your first choice in vehicles, which is the Tiger. So, that's my suggestion about vehicle caps. Now, a few smaller things I want to bring up. Now, one more thing I would like to see in mixed battle events are a few more objectives for fighter planes outside the ground map which actually matter. Now, in the Absolute Simulator battle event there were a few AI bombers flying around which fighters could attack if they had nothing else to do because there were no more enemy planes around, for example, to get some points, but they had no impact on the battle whatsoever, and I am not a very big fan of this. Yeah, I get some points for killing those things, but I want to help my team, that's what I'm here for. If shooting those things does nothing to help my team, it's a waste of my time, and I rather try to mark enemy positions with my tracers or something. There are a few ideas on how such objectives could look like. One that is coming up often and makes sense in my opinion would be artillery bases outside the ground forces map which can be strafed and destroyed, which influences the cooldown of RT for the tank drivers. On one map you sometimes also have supply drops that can be captured by the ground forces. Those could be brought in by actual planes and therefore present targets for fighters, just to give a few ideas. Now, another small thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I noticed it a lot during the Battle for the Caucasus event I played during the holidays, and that's the effect of weather in certain events. Now, in this event the German team had to escort Jo-87 dive bombers to their target and the Russian team had to destroy them. Now, what sadly happened quite often during this particular event was that there was a dense and low cloud ceiling, lower than the altitude of the Jo-87. So neither the team that was supposed to defend them nor the one that was supposed to attack them could find them. That is just something that needs to be taken into account by the mission makers. If you have objectives like escorting or destroying bombers that fly on a certain altitude, the possible weather needs to be restricted so that it does not make the objective impossible to achieve, like it sadly happened in this one event. Well, and this is it for my simulator battle event mode suggestions. Let me know what you think and what you would like to see to improve this game mode. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was informative, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.